Welcome to another episode of This Ain't It, where we talk about the destructive culture and behavior that continues to lead our youth to death or incarceration. And I'm live here from a California state prison to let our youth know this ain't it.
Waking up in the cell, this ain't it. Life is a living hell, this ain't it. Food tastes like trash, this ain't it. Lord, please forgive my past, this ain't it. What you're doing in the street, is it worth it? Death or prison, only two things, that's for certain.
Today I want to talk about a couple of things. I would like to talk about following direction. You know, a lot of cats out here in the street, they don't follow direction, and it leads them to prison. It leads them to an early grave. What are some of the repercussions behind bars if you don't follow directions?
Man, there's two sets of directives. One is that you have to follow the directions first and foremost of the prison or jail that you're in. If you don't, you're going to get a rules violation report, which can amount to doing more time in the jail or prison, right? And if you go into the parole board, those rule violation reports are things that you have to speak to, and they can ultimately keep you in prison much longer by you getting denied at the parole board because you don't follow directions, right? The other set of directives is for people that's involved in a criminal and gang lifestyle inside prisons and jails. You don't follow directions, you get one warning. They're going to talk to you, and then in that talk, those guys are going to tell you that the next time you're going to get removed from that yard, right? Meaning that they're going to pack you out, and you're going to leave hurt, injured, not to be seen again. You know, so following directions is everything. You know, me, myself, I don't have a problem following directions of the jail or prison that I'm in, not because solely that I want to get out, is that I know that in society, that was one of my problems, not following directions, not following the rules. And so if I get into the good habit of following
this call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
Following directions and living by the rules in here, that's a habit I can take to the street and ensure my longevity in the world. And that's just how the world is.
What are some of the things that could get someone packed out and removed from a yard?
Man, I've seen from the most trivial of manners to all kinds of things, man. I mean, it's been situations that have transpired where people have been told by correctional staff not to do a certain thing, and then if you do it, I'm going to come in and we're going to tear up the dorm or tear up the cell or tear up the whole cell block because you're doing this thing that you were told not to do. And I'm going to make sure that everybody knows that it was you. You're the reason that we're coming up in here. I've seen that happen. And the aftermath of that is that people have been removed for that. You know what I mean? Getting everybody's cell tore up or dorm tore up because you can't follow directions. I've seen stuff as trivial as walking through an area, like in the level 4s, especially on the 180s, is everybody in the yard, you know, the different cliques and crews and gangs and whatnot have specific areas where they enjoy recreation. And you are not supposed to walk through those areas for no reason. Even if the yard is closed, you still don't walk through that area where you know that particular group of individuals congregate if you're not a part of them. And not following that direction, not following that directive has been the result of, has resulted in people being removed from the yard, getting packed out. You know what I mean? Something as simple as that. Like, you know, you just walk through this area of the yard, past some benches where some other race or group of people, that's their quote unquote area. And the word get back to that guy's peoples that you did that, you can get removed for that. Just walking through a particular section of the yard.
One thing that I find interesting is that, you know, out on the street, you being a gang member back in the day, you had certain enemies out here in the street, you know, but when you get behind bars, you have to sit down and politic and eat and get along with your fellow enemy that you would in the street you'd be probably killing, correct?
Right. So that's one of the quirks of jail and prison is that, and it goes through all the different ethnicities: whites, Hispanics, blacks, Asians. Many of these people were rival gang members trying to kill each other, or in prison or jail for killing somebody from that gang, and then they come into prison, and the politics are such that you can find yourself either in the same cell, same dorm, or just in the same car, meaning that this is the clique that he runs with the same people that you were trying to kill or were trying to kill you on the street. And that's just one of the things that some people have a hard time swallowing, is one of the reasons that some people defect from the whole gang thing and go into sensitive needs yards. That is one of the catalysts for that. It just don't sit right with people that they have to do that now. And then for others, it's a beautiful thing to see that, and it can only be by the Creator's will, that people who were once enemies and rivals can now sit down and have a meal together, walk some laps together, so on and so forth, without any animosity or violence or anything negative jumping off. It's remarkable in one respect, and it's crazy in the other.
Yeah. How did you deal with it mentally, having to deal with your enemies that, just yesterday you were fighting, but now you have to get along with them?
So on my first term, when I came in, I was 19 years old when I got to the pen. I went to Corcoran Sea Yard. It was a level 3 at the time, and it was rocking. As a blood gang member at that time, I found myself making new relationships with gang members who were Crips that were in my age bracket, 19, 20, 21 years old, that had similar interests as me, that used to go to vocational training with me, people that I found, I was in their company a lot. And it really wasn't that hard because we had things in common, As far as the other blood gangs that were into a rivalry with the gang that I used to be from, I just dealt with it according to the rules of the penitentiary. You leave the streets on the streets. We're in prison now, and it was just smooth. I really didn't have a problem with that, like that. My mind was focused on other things, and there was a gang that was a direct rival. Like, it was going up at that time. It had just jumped off with that gang, and the irony of all of it was that one of those guys came to that prison. He came to Corcoran, to that yard, and this was a guy that I had been knowing since we was in elementary. Guy that I had been through juvenile hall and everything with. We fighting back to back, holding each other down, because those gangs used to be allies, closest of allies, and then they had become bitter enemies. And so I just treated him the same way I had treated him before we had got into that lifestyle. Like, this is my guy from Hooper Avenue School, you know what I mean? And we just went about it like that.
Okay. I've heard it takes years. Some people have told me it takes years in prison, but when did you realize, and I know this is a generic question, but when did you realize this ain't it? Waking up every day behind a cell, when did you realize this ain't popping?
It got real when I was on trial for murder, when I came down from the feds in 2006. I came down from Pollock, Louisiana. They flew me out, LAPD, Fugitive Services. I found myself sitting in the Twin Towers, LA County, and I'm on trial for murder and 2 attempted murders. I already got 4 bank robberies over my head that I got to do time for. And there just came a aha moment where I said, you know what? Whether I beat the case or not, I can't do this the way that I've been doing it most of my life. This ain't it. This ain't gonna work. I can't keep coming to jail fighting these kind of charges. This is not it. And it just so happened that This took place in Ramadan of 2007. That was Ramadan of 2007. And that's when I decided that, you know what? I'm finna try something different. I'm finna walk a different path. You know, it was just sitting in that box 24 hours a day with 100 years to life on the table. And it looks like I'm not finna get out of this. And then I got to go back to the federal penitentiary, finish up that time. Then I got to come back to the state penitentiary and start these life sentences if it all goes bad. That's when I realized this ain't it.
Man, and how much time had you done at that point? Remind me again.
So I had got arrested in 2004, June 30th to 2004. So this occurred about 2007, Ramadan 2007. So that was a little over 2.5, maybe 3 years into my incarceration, my second term, you know, to where it really just dawned on me like, you know what, I'm getting too old for this. By the time I get out of here, I'm going to be of a certain age. I want to have certain things. There's certain things that I still want to do. I want to take some vacations. I want to own a business. I want to get into some other things that gang banging and criminal activity is getting in the way of. This ain't it.
I know we probably got a couple more minutes. What do you see on your end?
So, yeah, I got a couple minutes, about 3 minutes.
Okay. Did you want to do any last words?
So, just on the outro, just reminding the listeners out there that, you know, there is a path to living your best life. And part of your purpose is to find that way. I mean, everybody has a different way. I don't think no two ways are the same, but the goal should be the same, and that's to live our best life. Because sitting up in these penitentiaries, fighting for your life with the legal system, the violence that goes on, battling depression, substance abuse issues, it's just the everyday shenanigans of prison life is, I mean, it's undescribable. You know, I remember coming in on my first term, I had 6 years with 85%. I knew I was going home, and it was a different feel. I was like, all I got to do is just not catch another case up in here and get struck out and end up in here with life. Outside of that, this is a cakewalk. Going from a level 3 yard to a level 4, went to Calipat from Corcoran, and then from Calipat down to Ironwood. So bouncing around those level 3s and 4s, just, you know, doing whatever I'm doing. It was no big deal. There was no incentive to correct my thinking or change or do anything.
You have 60 seconds remaining.
Right? And I got out, and within a year...
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
Within a year of being released, I was back with a murder, 2 attempted murders, 4 bank robberies, parole violation, and a gun beef. And it took all of that for me to get through my thick skull as a youth of 25 years old that this ain't it. Don't let that be the next tragedy in your life. And on that note, I say peace.
Waking up in the cell, this ain't it. Life is a living hell, this ain't it. Food tastes like trash, this ain't it. Lord, please forgive my past, this ain't it. What you're doing in the street, is it worth it? Death or prison, only 2 things that's for certain.